Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop-the-mic moments. Now, here's your host, Art Costello.
Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast. Today, Patrick Arguin is my guest. He lives in Quebec, Canada, Victoriaville, which the name has a deep meaning to me, which you will find out in the show. Anyway, he is the author of Tools of the Heart, a children's book series that tells and helps children understand the true meaning of courage. And he's a children's author and the creator of this wonderful book series. Patrick nurtured a lifelong passion for illustration and graphic design, but other heartfelt passions emerged. Humans and their well-being just reeked in his soul. His desire to help others and his role as a father were the driving force in conceiving the Tools of the Heart book series, which he aims to help children develop and maintain a stronger sense of self in order to build and rely on their inner resources. Patrick, as I said, resides in Victoriaville, Quebec, Canada, where he continues to develop Tools of the Heart and its different projects, while he is also working as a Reiki master, a counselor, and a school educator. Patrick, it is an honor and a blessing to have you on the show.
Thank you. It is really a privilege to be here. Thank you very much.
Can you tell us your backstory, how you grew up and your childhood and what led you down this path that you're going to?
Well, I would say that what started me on this journey of making books was my own journey of self-healing. Because when I was 25, I had a depression, which led me to re-question a lot of things in my life. And basically, for the first 25 years of my life, I had grown to be a very docile person, somebody who would often strive to please other people, starting with my mom, my dad, then my teachers, my friends, my girlfriends, etc. And at 25, it came to a point where this way of living, I realized was not only, it was not making me happy, but it was unsustainable. I could not go on that way. Fortunately, I met a therapist and counselor who later became my Reiki master. And I started therapy with her for a few years, then started to learn Reiki and other methods of counseling, while I was also working as a graphic designer. I've been studying and working as a graphic designer and web designer for 15 years. And in the midst of that, I had different courses and to develop this other passion that my therapy brought me, which is understanding the human beings and help them to become better versions of themselves and to strive and be happy.
That's a beautiful story. I love it because when I was 9 years old, I experienced depression and isolation and abandonment. And what the difference between you and I was at 25, you had people, you could count on people around you. At 9 years old, I couldn't. I had nobody. I was so isolated in my situation. Yeah. So your books, if I had them when I was 9, would have been a tremendous value to me. And can you tell us, in terms that are comfortable with you, those feelings at 25, how did they intertwine in the writing of Tools from the Heart?
It was very intimately, I would say, because what sparked the creation of the books was that when my daughter was 3 years old, she would seem to come from daycare a bit distraught. And I thought, maybe I could teach her meditation and grounding because I was already using those tools since a few years. So I created the character of Colin the oak tree to illustrate grounding, etc. And develop other characters to join him and then create stories. But I didn't have much material to build stories on. So I had the epiphany when I started thinking about my own healing journey and my childhood. I said to myself, wow, I could really expand on that and draw on my experience, my wounds, and divide them into themes in the books that become key elements that human beings all need in order to strive and be happy. And I also wanted to make each book a stepping stone for the following one. So there's a kind of progression in what the child is learning throughout each book. And I did so with two wonderful collaborators, Ellen and Michelle, with whom we had such a beautiful creative synergy together. It was a match made in heaven, if I can say that. I often like to compare ourselves with the Canadian rock band Rush. The trio Rush. There are three excellent musicians, but if you take out one member, it's not Rush anymore. So I feel a bit like that. If either one of us would have been missing from the trio, Tools of the Heart would not have existed. It was really the combination of our three talents that really made it possible. Because Ellen was my mentor and my Reiki master, so she had really the background in terms of counseling and understanding the psychology, etc. And I also had some background, but at the time of its creation, I was not as self-assured as I am today. So while I was working on this project, I was also developing my own assurance and my own owning my stuff, basically, walking my talk or talking my walk. I don't know. But
walking the talk.
Walking the talk. So but because the project started in 2006 when my son was born, and I published the first 4 books in 2011. Then the complete series of 8 in 2016. Those were in French. And in early 2019, I published in English. Mm-hmm. So the project spanned over 13 years. And so it taught me a lot of perseverance and courage. Yeah. And humility and many qualities that I am glad to have today.
It's beautifully written. And the flow of it is so natural that it just really makes total sense. I want to read the audience the sequence of the titles.
Sure.
Or the chapters in the volume 1. Father, Son, and Mother Earth create life. Second chapter, Fluffy and the Rainbow in His Heart. 3, Colin discovers confidence. 4, Colin and Fluffy become friends. And then in volume 2, it's The Choice, Colin's Courage, Enough is Enough, and Fluffy finds his well-being. The flow of that is done so well, and it makes sense.
Yeah. The first book of this series, the theme of the book is about breathing and finding your own rhythm. And it really dawned on me recently how perfect this book was, because what I've been realizing as an educator in the last few years working with the students and young children is that the attachment bonding necessary for the children to develop in the early years, with the parent is so precious and so important. And that is why the first story involves the mom and the dad, mm-hmm. creating life.
Right.
So the child can refer to that and say, oh yes, the love between mommy and daddy, and I'm here. And so there's a sense of security there, and security is the number one need that humans have, that it makes all the difference between striving mode and survival mode. So feeling safe,
that's very interesting.
It's really important. And finding your own rhythm, so important too, because one of the reasons I think so many children are stressed today and anxious is because they often have to follow the parents' own rhythm, which is already accelerated by exterior factors. And they're trying to to adjust to that, instead of it should be the parents, slowing down and adjusting to the child's own rhythm. If you take a child, and you place him in a room and you give him Legos, and he will be calm and doing his own thing, and but if you take him, we have to go there, we have to get moving, we have to go he becomes stressed and he becomes reactive, and no, I don't want to go. And we are not always conscious of how much we sometimes interfere with the child's own rhythm. So giving the children tools for that was a goal, an objective, a goal, and bringing the parent mindful about that also. In each book, I always try to provide tools for the children, and bring the parents mindful about some of the pitfalls or the challenges that the child can face. So I think that's why it makes for a beautiful educational tool, because in each of the books, there are the little elves that guide and counsel the characters. And the way the dialogues were created for those is that it was so the parent or the educator or the caretaker can model the dialogues, and so to be able to guide the children.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that we think in the same terms, are just wording of things, because when you talk about rhythms, I believe that there are rhythms in life, and life is a series. I know that there's, positive energy, and I know that there's negative energy that comes into our lives and everything. But, what I learned at 9 years old was how to take care of myself, because I had to. I was forced into that situation. What I learned, and I didn't learn it, I learned it at the time, but it took me years to realize what that meant. And when I learned that living to who I am in my heart and soul, I'm a big crier. I cry at the simplest of things. I'm very tender-hearted and all that. It was difficult for me as a child, because I would go to school and something would touch my heart and tears would flow, and the teachers would have a conniption. They thought something was really wrong and all that. But, I had to learn how to adjust to all of that.
I think that adults in general are not always conscious or aware of how sensitive children can be. If I may share a little piece of my backstory, when I was 3 years old, I was living in an apartment with my parents, and my grandparents decided to visit us. So after dinner, I take my bath and go to bed. But unbeknownst to me, and respect for the elders behold, my parents offered their bedroom to my grandparents. And so the next morning when I woke up, I did as my usual. I went to wake up my mom. And what did I see? My old grandma. So I started to panic, and I must have been so freaked out that I didn't even see my parents sleeping in the bed in the living room. And so I just got out of the building and was walking around crying, "Mommy, Mommy!" And because it was summer and the windows were open, my mom got woken up and said, "Hey, that's Patrick." So she came outside, picked me up, and that was that. But in my memory, the damage was done, because it had created the wound and the fear of abandonment, and from that point onward, I became very weary of my mom not abandoning me, trying to please her all the time, or not displease her, or to become the good boy, which later developed into what I became. And there's a French-Canadian therapist and author, Liz Bourbeau, who wrote a book about, she calls that the 5 wounds of the soul, and which each one of the wounds create a different set of coping mechanisms. And one of the coping mechanisms that abandonment might produce is dependency.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I became really dependent. And so at 25, I came to the realization that I could not go on like this anymore. But it goes to show how sometimes we get wounded in the most benign situations, and this was a big deal for me. But, I think we all get wounded in different aspects in our lives, but some take a much bigger place than others.
The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com.
And I agree. And it's what always amazes me when I talk to fellow men like yourself that have gone through this is the process of how you've healed yourself and where it's led you is so beautiful and unique. But you and I both know there are many men and women out there and children who have been wounded in childhood and who will never heal, never heal. Mm-hmm. And I just think how blessed we are, and writing seems to be a big part of healing. Do you agree with that? Do you think that writing is a way that helped you heal? I know it did me. I know when I wrote my book, Expectation Therapy, basically how I started it was telling my story. And the more I told my story, the more my life began to make sense. And the more that I understood how I became me.
Yeah.
But more than that, what it's helped me do is become a better man, a better father, a better person all the way around. It's just taught so many lessons.
I think that when we are in search of healing, when we are wounded, when people get wounded, sometimes humans have a very hard time dealing with the pain. So when they do that, the only way to do that is to disconnect themselves from who they are and their hearts. But the love we have inside and the pain we have is in the same place. So when you disconnect yourself from the pain, you also disconnect from the love you have inside in your heart. So I think that the healing process that anyone can go through involves getting back into our hearts and allowing, if we want this love and this light to emerge, we don't have the choice but to face the pain that we have. And I think that any creative process will facilitate that. For me, it was illustration, and later on, writing came along. But yes, I think that when the deeper we can connect with our hearts, the deeper we can get to the bottom of things. Because if we don't do that, then we will always skim the surface of our wounds, and so change is hard when we don't allow ourselves to go that deep.
Do you think having emotional intelligence the sooner that we develop it, do you think it's beneficial?
Oh, yes. Yes. And I think that most most humans are built with that, are equipped, because babies have what we call mirror neurons, and it's special neurons designed to learn. And the way they help us is to mimic what our parents do, think, feel, and that is the basis of empathy. So if we have good models and we have safety and love and genuine heartfelt connections, then this emotional intelligence just blossoms on its own, but if we experience difficult situations or very early on, then sometimes it may be difficult to develop this emotional intelligence because the brain is constantly on survival mode, and that prevents the frontal lobe of the brain to develop and have more empathy and emotional intelligence. But there's always that those flowers growing in the desert, I like to say, those people or those children that despite harsh environments, grow up to be resilient people.
Yeah. Which leads me into this other thought, because in your book, you talk a lot about kids being courageous and teaching them to be courageous. Why is it so important for kids to be courageous?
Because I think that courage, is the basis of expressing who you are. And when you don't allow yourself to express who you truly are, then it becomes harder to recognize what you have inside, and so you become more. There's a void inside of you that might be created, and you will try to fill that void by interacting with other people, and not necessarily in the most healthiest way.
Do you think that the opposite in a child of being courageous is being fearful?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, I kind of think so too.
Yeah, because fear is a real inhibitor of everything.
Is.
It prevents you to dare to say things you enjoy, to do what you want, you're wary about what others will think of you, and is it okay if I do this? And always fearing not to be loved, and when you fear not to be loved, then what you basically do is you try to meet everybody else's expectations. I don't know if you're familiar with nonviolent communication. Marshall Rosenberg, the father of nonviolent communication, coined a really interesting expression. He calls this emotional slavery, where we feel responsible for the feelings of others, and inversely, we believe others to be responsible for our own feelings. So what that does is that it entraps us in each other's expectations. So it's hard to develop, genuine and authentic interactions and becoming authentic ourselves, because we are never trying to please who we are. We're trying to please everyone else.
Well, one of the things that I write a lot about is faith and fear, because that is the two lenses that we see our expectations through. Faith doesn't necessarily be in a religious sense. It can be in the faith in yourself. It can be in the faith of a coach, of anybody, a therapist. It could be anybody. But if you fear, it absolutely stops you from doing everything. It just is. Fear is so detrimental to human existence.
Yeah.
So I write a lot about faith and fear. That faith, if we see our expectations through two lenses, either faith or fear, faith moving us through, and it vacillates back and forth depending on the situation.
Exactly. And I think that the common element of those two is self-worth. Because when you have faith, you are able to a certain degree to recognize your own worth and what you're capable of. But when you are in fear, it's like you have a really hard time realizing what you are worth, or what you are really made of, or what you are able to do. So to me, it really has to do with the self-worth, that the value that we give ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
When you value yourself to a very high degree, faith comes easily, but when you don't consider yourself, when your value is not much, then you're always in doubt of what you can do or accomplish.
Exactly. Exactly. One of the things you talked about self-worth that I really, really love in the book is that I equated it with self-care.
Mm-hmm.
That it teaches a child to care for themselves.
Absolutely.
And that is such a powerful tool for any human being to have and to be able to take care of. Because I get questioned a lot when I do speeches and talks about expectation therapy and how it is. And people always ask, isn't this really selfish? Isn't it this all about you? And I said, no, it's about self-care.
Yes.
It's about caring for yourself emotionally and doing the things that you were meant to do, not what you're guided to do by others.
Mm-hmm. And I really think and believe from my heart that the easiest way, or the best way, I think, to start a healing process, any healing process, is self-care, because you will then start to give yourself what nobody ever gave you, or what you never give yourself permission to ask, or never thought you could expect from somebody. So you're giving what you want to receive. And so self-care will help you develop self-compassion, self-love, self-forgiveness, because sometimes in the process of the healing journey, you realize how we sometimes come to realize how we surrendered our power to some people or some situations. And the only way to take back our power is to take responsibility for that. But sometimes you have to forgive yourself for these past mistakes. Although very unconscious they were, you are still responsible for them. So self-care is really the basis of any healing journey a person can start. And I think that it was also a recurring theme in the books, teaching the children how to take care of themselves, so they don't become dependent of anyone for that. That's how you become autonomous and responsible, when you are able to care for yourself.
Exactly. I mean, couldn't said it better myself. I mean, that is a perfect description of what your book teaches.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a perfect description of what it is. And I was trying to think when I was reading it, there's so many lessons in your material. There's so many great tips. Can you give us 5 of your favorite tips for kids to be courageous?
I would say that the first tip would be to make them feel safe. Like I said, safety is a primary need we have as humans, and it makes the difference between striving mode and survival mode. So paying attention, listening to them. Do not overprotect them, though, because then the children will start to doubt his own capacity of taking care of himself, and that can easily lead to them to become anxious. Make them feel loved. They are beings of pure love, and they need people around them to reflect that same state of being, or else they might start to doubt themselves and their worth. and what they deserve from life, and what they can achieve. Make their presence meaningful to you, I would say, because they need to feel that the love they have inside of them can also be given and expressed, and that it can make a difference in other people's life. And I think it's truly important if we want them to act kindly, to other people, by compassion and not by obligation, because doing things out of obligation is never fun. And understanding that they are autonomous beings who just need to be reminded to be responsible for their needs, their feelings, their emotions, their life, and not ours, not the parents' life. And let them know that making mistakes is okay. And for the parents, I would say, cultivate in yourselves what you want to see in your children. It's hard to give something you don't have. So if you need help, counsel, support, whatever, seek it. And I think the book series is actually a good start, perhaps, because for some of the feedback I got, it sometimes had the power of helping adults reconnect with their inner child. That is some of the feedback I got. And mostly older people would say to me, gosh, I really enjoyed your books because it makes me feel like a child again, So I think that the themes in the book and the messages and everything, they are really universal, and they can really help a person to get in touch with their hearts and what really matters. Because what's in our hearts, people sometimes ask me, well, what's so important about the heart and etc. Well, in your heart are the things that really matter to you, your needs, your feelings, and if you cannot express that, well, it's a shame. I mean, if we can't express ourselves, not being able to express ourselves, I think, is a slow death in some ways, because, life is within us, and we need to be able to express it. But if we don't allow ourselves to express it, then we slowly become dull and jaded and apathic. And life is I don't want to say bad words, but
life is to be lived.
Yes.
I mean, that's my thing. I write a lot about wants, needs, and desires. Because I think that once you start fulfilling your wants, needs, and desires, it just makes you feel more loved and validated, and I think, I write about that the two biggest things that adult human beings want, but I think it's all human beings, is to be loved and to be validated in their beliefs and what they believe in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're heading down the right path, teaching children this stuff early. Has the Canadian system embraced your book, the school system?
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
I know that in New Brunswick, a few schools that have my books and do workshops with them with mindfulness and things like that. Right now, I'm doing some workshops myself with the kinders in my school. I haven't got to the point of marketing it in in a large, in a wide way right now. You know, I've had some interesting sales, etc., but they still need to be known on a larger scale. I think that once I can get in a few schools, it will spread.
Yeah, I think that there's some books that are written that just need to be in the school system.
Yeah.
And yours is certainly in that category, and I don't mean in just the Canadian, I mean in the whole world.
Yeah, why not?
Well, it'd be great for book sales, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, one thing, I don't know if you have this in Canada, but we have book distributors that promote books to school systems.
Yeah, we do have that.
Yeah, and that would be a great place for you to get your book into the hands of those people, so that they can, because they have the connections to all the school districts, and all the school superintendents around there.
You just gave me a good reminder.
Yeah, and I just think that this book, I think your book deserves it. I think your book deserves to be in every school, in every place in the world.
Well, thank you very much.
I mean, we have Harry Potter in every school. This is much more important than the fantasy land of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
This is much, much, and that's what's so dear to my heart.
Yeah, it is. It is truly one of my goals that my books may be distributed in many schools so that we can teach children self-care. Self-care to me is so important. And I think that, the more a child knows how to take care of himself, the better adult is going to become.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's really paramount. You need schools and principals and teachers to believe that it's important, because otherwise, they will just continue to teach their usual stuff.
Yeah. Have you shared this? You're a counselor, a school counselor, and all that. Have you shared it in amongst your peers, and what has the feedback been from them?
I shared it a few times, but I sometimes got the impression that their focus was on other things. So I proposed some things and I experimented things with the children, but there's always the question of budget and things like that. So it's
always about the budget with school districts.
Yes. So, but hey, if I ever get the resources to do that one day, maybe I would start my own schools. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great thought. I really like that.
Yeah.
This 45 minutes has gone really fast, and I wanted to give you an opportunity before we sign off in the next 5 or 10 minutes to leave us with a message, and then let us know where they can get a hold of you, where your book is, and what's coming up for you, and what's coming in the future. In other words, tell us all of your secrets that are hiding in your brain.
All right. Well, in terms of future projects, right now me and my two collaborators, we are working on guided meditations that are all related to each of the themes. So there would be 2 meditations for each theme, though 16 guided meditations. And guided meditations were really an integral part of the initial concept, because for me, it was important to not only teach stuff through images and words, but to allow children to also get in touch with themselves, because the key component of every book, is to nurture that connection with ourselves, which I think is the basis for self-care, and everything starts from there. The connection, the deep connection with ourselves, and giving ourselves love and importance, and that's the basis for me. And so making meditations that will facilitate that was really important. And also that when they read the story, they get a sense of, the feeling in the words or the images, the soft images. But I also wanted them to have another experience, an experience where they could feel in their hearts what it meant, to feel grounded, or to feel appreciative of your qualities, or to feel your courage mustering up, or feeling how it feels to suit yourself and take care of yourself. So for me, guided meditations were the best medium for that. And so right now we are writing them in French. Eventually I will do the same process in with my English counterparts. And further down the line, I also would like to translate them in Spanish. Porque yo hablo español también. I have collaborators who also speak Spanish. So teachers in my school, because I work in a trilingual school, by the way. And so I speak French, but my day-to-day is always in the three languages. So that's in my projects. And if I could share what I wish I would like the people to take away from my stories and my books, it would be that, all the answers and the resources we need are already inside of us. We only need to connect with them, and develop ways and habits to nurture that connection, and to nurture your inner garden, your feelings, your needs, and everything that matters to you, so that your self-worth will always be filled to the brim. And that way, letting yourself down will never be an option. And always believe you can change anything that doesn't make you happy. Always.
Boy, those are wise words. And they really don't just pertain to children. They pertain to every single living human being on the face of this earth.
Yeah. And adults sometimes they forget that they are also children. At the core of themselves, they are children.
That is true. Well, this has been an absolute treasure, and I want to do this again with you. I'd like to do it probably when you're after maybe about 6 months, when you've got this thing really rocking and rolling, because I have a feeling, and I'm going to encourage my audience, connect with Patrick. Patrick, what's your website, and where can they get the book?
My website is toolsoftheheart.com. And they can get a hold of me on Facebook too, Tools of the Heart. You can find it easily. The very colorful images. So Facebook, my website, Instagram. I'm trying to get more into that. Right now, I'm in the process of exploring Instagram and how I can use it to my best advantage. So, but Facebook and my website are really good place you can reach me. Mm-hmm. And my website is transactional, meaning that people can buy my books there. They can also be bought in Amazon, in Barnes and Nobles and Indigo and all the major online bookstores. And the difference is that on these online bookstores, you can only buy the books individually. So they are sold individually and they are sold together as volumes containing each 4 stories, the ones you had, Art. But on my website, I can sell with different combos and stuff like that. So they have the choice.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it for that. And I'm going to encourage my audience to go out and buy these books, and buy them for yourself, buy them for your kids, buy them for your grandkids, because this is basic. This is at the core of a child and how to help them develop. And it's tools that they can use. And Patrick, it's been an honor having you on the show, and I look forward to working with you and doing things in the future, because no matter what, the kids of this world are our future, and
Yes.
it's our legacy. And that's what's important about it, is that we do the work so these kids can live in a world of love and respect and kindness and caring. I mean, that's what we all want. With that being said, folks, it's another episode out, and Patrick, it's been great, and everybody knows where they can get a hold of me. Art at Expectation Therapy. My website's expectationtherapy.com. And Heather White, you can go ahead and take us out.
Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.